What's going on, Jets fans? Welcome back to another video, and today, guys, I'm going to be talking to you about a topic that I did not think that I would be discussing at all in relatively to the 2021 NHL season for the Winnipeg Jets, and that is defensive prospect Logan Stanley. Now, if you'd asked me even basically a month ago, hell, even 2 weeks ago, would Logan Stanley be a decent contributing player to the defensive core for the Winnipeg Jets in the 2021 season, I would have said that you're high, you're drunk, whatever you are, you're a bum living at Portage in Maine, get out of my face. But no, that's not what happened. Logan Stanley came into a roster in the second game of the season against the Toronto Maple Leafs, which ended up being a 3-1 loss, but not anything to do it to anything he did, and played pretty well. Like, yeah, it's been limited minutes for him nonetheless, and I will be the first one to say that 35 seconds into the video already, basically. Logan Stanley, in very limited minutes, did not look bad. He did not look fantastic. He did not look like he was going to be a superstar, or he did not look like he was going to be worthy of that first-round pick that he was. Nonetheless, he still looked solid in the limited minutes that we have, and I think that that in itself is a huge win for Logan Stanley when you look at where he was last year with the Manitoba Moose. Logan Stanley has been god-awful. He's been a trash can. He has been a pile. He could be the worst things you could call a defenseman or a player in the NHL or in any professional hockey league for that matter. He has just been bad. The fan base has completely left him in the dust. Most people, the hell, that watched the Moose didn't even want him on the Moose last year, and he's just been not a good contributing factor to this entire organization, basically, in any which way. And because of that, I thought that he was really down for the count. I thought that he would be a forgotten prospect, the first real failed, like 100% failure of a pick that Cheveldayoff had in that first round, and maybe it won't be such a failure after all. Now, I know that seems like a lot to make after 2 games and limited playing time, but he looks so much better than what he was with the Moose, and I think, like I said, that in itself is such a win that it makes the prospect situation more interesting with the back end. Because yes, Ville Heinola and Dylan Samberg are better players as it stands right now than what Logan Stanley is. There's no denying that. If you don't think that that is the case, then you need to really evaluate what you think Ville Heinola is and Dylan Samberg is, and go watch them a little bit more, because they are very, very, very good hockey players with a really good hockey sense of IQ, and they're just really good prospects that I'm really happy and grateful that the Jets have in their system. But having Logan Stanley enter into that mix now of potentially, trying to push for a roster spot and being a competent defenseman possibly, that makes things a little bit more interesting in my mind. Now, when you look at the Winnipeg Jets defensive core right now, if they were healthy, everyone was playing their best hockey, you would have Dylan DeMello playing with Josh Morrissey, a second pairing of Derek Forbett and Neil Pionk, and a third pairing that is a little bit up in airs. After going into the start of the season, I would say Niku Belliu was a good pairing. As we see right now, as it stands right now, I don't want Niku anywhere near a blue line. Hell, I don't even want Niku near a sheet of ice. But nonetheless, that means that there is a spot open on that roster. Nonetheless, also to talk about Tucker Pullman potentially slotting into there. And that just means, in my opinion, that the Jets have a little bit more fluctuality with their defensive core moving forward. Because now that you have potentially Ville Heinola, Dylan Samberg, and a hungry Logan Stanley trying to push for more ice time and minutes, I think that creates, a little bit more pressure on Paul Maurice and the coaching staff, and even Cheveldayoff to an extent, to try to figure out what the best step for the defense is moving forward. Because you know that Ville Heinola is going to be a top 4 defenseman, and as it stands right now, it looks pretty promising that Dylan Samberg will be a top 4 defenseman as well. And when you have 2 guys butting for that spot that are both young rookies, unproven, even though they have a lot of talent, that does create a certain situation for the coaching staff, and especially with Paul Maurice not being one to play rookies heavily, that creates an interesting situation for the Jets defense nonetheless. I think that if the Jets were to move forward from this day with the best defensive core that they could have, as it stands right now, I'm starting to think that it makes more sense in a shortened season due to the fact that also that we don't really know if the AHL, the OHL, and all that, what it's going to look like. I think rotating Dylan Samberg, Ville Heinola, and potentially Logan Stanley in, maybe for Nathan Beaulieu, depending on the matchup and size and whatnot, could be a better way to introduce these guys into the roster and give them all an opportunity to really kind of fight for that top spot and really compete to be that number 1 defender. Now, I know this is something that I kind of goes against what I've said in the past about how promising Ville Heinola is, how promising Dylan Samberg is, but now that you have a Logan Stanley, playing competently, I think that does change the dynamic of the defensive core moving forward. Yes, like I've said, limited minutes, and I don't want to jump the gun too much on talking about what the potential could be with him, because yes, he hasn't made any big mistakes yet. He hasn't been reliable for any goals. He hasn't produced any points. He just been solid with his size. He's been a presence on the ice when he's been on the ice, in my opinion. Some people will disagree with that. I think he's been a good presence and a good fit. Kind of actually bringing back a little bit of the buff factor that we've lost since he's not been with the team anymore and retired, basically. And that's a heavy-hitting defenseman in the back end. Now, he stood up for his team. He got right up in there with Brady Tkachuk, excuse me. I thought that was a great thing to see because not a lot of guys are going to do that other than what Patrik Laine did in the first game against his brother, Matthew Tkachuk, and getting in there and throwing heat. But again, none of us would have expected Patrik Laine to be that type of player moving into the start of this season. No one really expected him to start throwing the heat and being an angry type of player like that and playing with a lot of tenacity and grit in his game to start the season. Nonetheless, when you look at what the Winnipeg Jets have with their defensive core moving forward and with their team in general, they don't have that much grit. Logan Stanley could potentially bring that. So now if you have a guy like Logan Stanley who can play physical minutes, who can hit, be a presence on the blue line, and let his presence be felt by the opponent team, I think that could be a good dynamic for the Jets moving forward this season, depending on the matchup. And having Logan Stanley potentially come in and replace a guy like Nathan Beaulieu, who has been very, very mediocre to start the season, other than maybe being a decent penalty killer for us at time to time so far in this first 3 games. I think that would make a lot more sense for me moving forward because that way you have a little bit more fluctuality with moving Ville Heinola into that roster because you know that Ville Heinola is hungry for an opportunity, especially with the way that he played in that World Junior Tournament, and I think that he's really going to be trying to push for a good season this year, and he could potentially bring elite puck moving to that team and even to the power play and to whatnot, and it could be really good for the Jets moving forward. There's just so many potentials now with what Logan Stanley could potentially bring to this team. I think it's very, very interesting on what this team could look like with its defensive core moving forward as it stands right now. But like always, guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on Logan Stanley's performances so far? I've been reading your comments on the last few game reactions, so I've kind of gotten a consensus, but what do you guys think about what I've said about Jet possibly rotating these 3 players and trying to find the best matchup against the opponent and using it that way to try to evaluate which one of these rookies is going to stick better with the team moving forward long term than having to still work on his game and develop a little bit more into that consistent NHL defenseman that the Jets desperately need on the blue line? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Regardless of what team you root for, if you're a fan of hockey, definitely consider dropping a subscription and turning on notifications if you haven't already. It does mean the world to me, and I thank you guys for all the support you show this channel. We are right up there with almost 500 subscribers. I can't wait to hit that milestone with you guys. You've made this journey such a really awesome journey. I never expected this channel to really do as well as it's done within the last, I guess, 3 months, and it really does mean a lot to me. I'm glad to see that there are Jets fans out there who agree with me and enjoy the content, and I hope to continue bringing you guys enjoyable content in the future. Peace, love, and positivity, guys. I will see you in the next video. Go Jets, go.